time when I was restoring one of my old Mercedes. I was lying underneath the car and I couldn't reach the bolt. She was like, "Out the way, Dad." And she put her tiny little hands up. She was able to start it off, yeah.
Tiny hand.
And when I look back on the history of the cars, they used to employ children.
Welcome to Giving Life Color, the talk show. This is where we meet people bringing cars and creativity to life. Let's hit the road with our very special guest, Mr. Gary Mavers himself. Hello, Gary.
Hello, nice to be here.
Welcome. We are very thrilled that you are here. You were an actor and you still are an actor?
Yeah, we're all actors, aren't we?
Of course. And from acting to restoration, how did you do this transition?
Well, I just found myself, like many actors, with a lot of downtime in between jobs. You know, you might work 2 or 3 months of the year. So rather than sit around and wait for the phone to ring, I just decided to put my energies into something else that I really enjoyed and I was really interested in and passionate about, which was classic cars. So when I was like 25 years of age, just kind of started doing TV work and that. I decided to buy a car off a local hairdresser, but that's another story. I'm sure we'll cover this in a later question.
Of course, but no, we can cover it now.
Well, in the village where I live, there was a car in a garage up the road. It was a classic Mercedes 230 SL, a Pagoda Sports, a 1965, but it only had one problem. It was shocking pink. I found out who the owner was, which wasn't that difficult. It belonged to a guy called Herbert Howe, who was a very flamboyant, very eccentric guy, bit of a showman, bit of an exhibitionist. He was a local hairdresser and a bit of a celebrity. And he actually did the first sort of reality TV show in Britain, and it was called Herbert's Salon. His house was pink. Knocked on his door, he answered the door in a pink suit. He had a pink pair of kicker shoes on. And he was just a really funny guy, really larger-than-life guy. And anyway, cut a long story short, I managed to buy the car off him and then started restoring the car. I'd never really worked on cars before, so it was a baptism of fire. But over the course of the next year, I restored the whole car, front to back.
In 1 year?
A year, yeah.
What was the color?
It was,
final color?
Well, it was shocking pink to begin with. But I decided to put the car back to its original colour, which was Old English white, which looked much nicer.
So this is your first project?
That was my first project, yeah. I was 25 years of age, so a long time ago. So
from that step, how do you go to the next step?
Well, over the course of the next, say, decade, 2 decades, I was quite prevalent in TV. I was working non-stop. But I still had an eye for working on classics in any downtime I came across, in between family and everything else. So over the next couple of decades, I became pretty proficient in what I was doing. I'm very particular about the way I went about my work, and you know, I was quite scrupulous and very kind of, you know, I was into the detail of cars. But rather than completely radically change a car, if it was an interesting, beautiful classic, I would try as much as possible to keep the car as original as possible. And just
bring the whole structure?
The whole structure. I'd sometimes change the colour of a car if it wasn't kind of suited to me or suited to the decade or the time we were living in. Well, the last few years, for instance, we've had a lot of whites, blacks, silvers. It's been pretty bland. But I think I was more aspiring to colours like this, vibrant colours. I think I've always thought colour was very important in our lives. The colours affect our moods, the way we think. They make us happy, they make us sad.
The way we drive.
The way we drive, yeah. I mean, it affects our hormones. It affects everything about us, you know. It can brighten up a day, it can make us feel good about ourselves and vice versa. So yeah, I was always interested in the 1960s and 70s vibrant yellows and oranges and you know, the pastel greens and you know, colours that make us feel good about ourselves. Very summery colours, you know.
What is your favorite?
My favourite colour?
Yes.
Probably yellow, which is a bit strange because everybody says blue or reds or oranges, but I think yellow, you know, there's so many different shades of a particular colour as well. I think there's like 100 shades of black, 100 shades of white, which are contrasts, but yellows would be the same. There's so many different yellows. There's pearlescent colours. There's, you know, it's endless really.
These two yellows, is it good enough for you? Are they good enough for you?
Yeah, I like this one better than that one.
Why?
Because that's a bit of a dull. It's almost like it's about to rain sky. And that's kind of a sunny day, isn't it?
It does. Yeah. It is. Really? I have never thought about that this way.
Well, the weather affects our moods, as do colours, I think.
How do you choose colours for special cars? I mean, the brand of the car makes you to choose the colour, vice versa? How?
Sometimes. I mean, I restored a 220 Mercedes, a big 5-seater convertible. Now, it was a 1965 car, but it was painted originally in the Geneva Motor Show, 1963 Geneva Motor Show colour, which was horizon blue, which was like a sky blue. But for that particular car, it wasn't a good colour. So I decided to do something a little bit radical, and I painted it metallic silver. And I changed the interior from red leather to like, it was a cognac, it was like a biscuit brown, which really set the silver off with a cream hood, a cream soft top. Now, that was just my personal preference, and it completely transformed the car, because if I'd kept the car in its original colour, if the car had provenance, maybe I would have done that. Maybe if it was like number 1 or number 2 or a really important, historically, a really important car, I would have kept it the original colour. For me, that colour was the right colour. And I'm glad I did, because I read in a magazine after I'd finished the car, and against everybody's complaints, it was like, you can't do it that colour, you've got to keep it the same. I decided to go with it, and I was a little bit like, have I done the right thing? And I read in Vogue that Ralph Lauren purchased the same car in the late 60s and insisted he wanted it in that colour, in the same colour scheme, with the cognac leather seats and the silver exterior. And he said, you can't have it that colour, sir. He said, but I want it. I want to order in that colour, and that's what I like, and that's what I want. And when he got the car, they started making them in that colour because it was such a good colour combination. So I didn't do too bad.
You are the first.
Yeah, no, I wasn't. He was the first.
He was the first. You restored more than 20 cars. Tell us the most unique experience. I mean, every story, every restoration, I think that is unique. Yeah. But what is the most significant for you?
Well, that was quite a unique experience, you know, what we've just spoken about. I also managed to acquire, you know, the 600 limousine, the 1960s stretch limousine.
Tell me about it.
Well, I acquired 3. 2 of them, one of them was a UK car, another one was an Australian car, and another one was a South African car. And they were all right-hand drive. But the South African car, I realised it belonged to, I got a message through of somebody saying, I know this car. I drove in this car in the 1970s in South Africa, and it belonged to Pik Botha, who was the last Prime Minister of South Africa.
Wow.
And he was a very colourful guy because, and I kind of knew it had some kind of historical value because it had the flagpoles on the side. So I thought it's either, you know, somebody from the government or a film star or, you know, somebody of note. And this car was in like a sable browny grey, sort of. Anyway, somebody wrote in and said they travelled in this car in South Africa and it belonged to Pik Botha, who was a very colourful character because he served under President de Klerk, and he eventually changed his colours because he changed his beliefs and his colours like a chameleon to serve under, you know, different presidents or different prime ministers. You know, he changed his policies, whatever. He's a very colourful character and well liked for the way he was. But you know, there was a lot of people who didn't like him and were against him for certain reasons, but he was a really colourful guy. And I thought, well, a car like that of such provenance, you know, it has to be kept the way it was when it was new.
And you did that.
Yeah, yeah.
And are you proud?
I wouldn't say proud, but I think it was important, you know.
What makes you proud when you finish the restoration?
If I think I've done a really good job, and I think I've done the car justice, and I haven't cut corners, and I haven't let people influence me in a way against which I wanted to do.
What do you mean about what?
Well, if somebody said, like for instance, about the silver colour on the Mercedes-Benz, that I was adamant I was going to paint the car, then, you know, if I'd gone the other way and kept it the horizon blue, it would have been wrong, you know, and I would have felt a little bit upset about that. I was glad I went the way I did, and I think the colour scheme I chose was correct.
Mm-hmm. When we don't find the colour, is it easy for you to find the colours for classic cars?
Sometimes.
Because it seems, sometimes.
Sometimes they just jump out at you, but sometimes it's difficult, and sometimes because of the provenance of a car, you have to keep it the original colour that it left the factory with.
Exactly.
But sometimes it's not a really nice colour. So, you know, you're stuck in between a rock and a hard place.
In the decision that you chose the final
Yeah.
colour for the car, either it's original or you change the colour of the car. Does the story of each car influence this decision?
Absolutely. I mean, the car I've just spoken of, the Mercedes 600 that belonged to Pick Boter, he was such a colourful character that he actually served under Mandela as well. Even though he served under de Klerk, it was completely different policy-wise and in his beliefs. So he was a real colourful character. So for me, to have that historic provenance, you have to keep the car the colour it was meant to be. And the best example I can give you of that, I've just purchased a Bentley, you know, the Rolls-Royce Corniche convertible?
Yes.
They made 41 in the Bentley, and I found one in a breaker's yard in California. It was originally a UK car, but it somehow found its way over to America, and I traced the story back. It belongs to a really colourful entrepreneur called David Wickens in England, who was a billionaire. He ended up buying Lotus and selling Lotus to the Americans. And he went over to America and settled in America. Now, it turned out this car was the first one off the production line, number one of a 41
Number
production
one
line.
of the 40.
You've got to keep number one.
Of course.
So I found the car's interior is dark blue, which is wrong. It should have been off-white.
Okay.
But the exterior of the car was correct. It was Valentine Ming blue, which is kind of like a royal blue. It's not the nicest colour, but I think it looked beautiful with the old English white interior and the dark blue hood as well. That's got, because it's number one, because of its provenance, you've got to keep that original, I think.
You don't work alone. Sometimes you work with your daughters.
Yeah, sometimes, well, my youngest daughter, India, who's now 23, when she was very young, she loved helping Dad. She had her own little boiler suit and she'd lie on the cars with me. There was one time when I was restoring one of my old Mercedes, I was lying underneath the car and I couldn't reach the bolts to tighten the gearbox. Anyway, she was like, "Out the way, Dad." And she put her tiny little hands up. She was able to start it off, yeah.
Tiny hand.
And it really helped me out. And I couldn't understand why I couldn't do it. And when I look back on the history of the cars, back in Stuttgart when they were originally built, they used to employ children to fit behind the dash, all the places that men couldn't reach. Like, the dash is all steel on these cars, so you have to literally slide your hands up to tighten the clocks in and everything else, the speedometer, the tachometer, the radios, everything else, the switches. And they used to employ children and allot them 20 minutes to put an entire dash together, which would probably take me about a week. So it was good to have her around, you know. The other two weren't interested. I've got 3 daughters, but the other 2 weren't really interested.
Bigger hands.
But India always wanted to help Dad out, and I took her to the United States with me a couple of months ago because I was restoring an old Mercedes 190 SL in 1958, and she loved it. She came out for 2 weeks with me, and the boiler suit went back on, and she helped Dad again. You know, it's nice, you know, lad and daughter stuff.
Fantastic.
Dad and daughter, I should say.
Yeah. And if somebody told you that you can create a color, a unique color, what color scheme would it be? And if you can think of a name for it?
Ooh, I think it would be probably a yellow. That's a nice fresh yellow. That's kind of a dull yellow, as I said.
That's a sunny one.
Yeah, maybe a sunny yellow. Yeah, that's probably being done now. It's a bit boring, isn't it?
Yeah.
But getting back to your earlier question as well, how I ended up doing the YouTube channel.
Yeah.
It was my daughters who said to me about 3 years ago, they said, Dad, you do this every day of your life. You've got to do a channel on YouTube. And I was like, no, I'm not really into that. You know, just like, you know, working quietly in the garage on my own. I'm not really an exhibitionist. And they're like, Dad, you've got to do it. You've got to bring it to the TV, you know.
But it was kind of a meditation for you.
Yeah, and it does change things as well, because eventually I can see it. I said, okay, yeah, I'll have a go. And it took off and it's been great. But it changes things because it's always been my hobby. It's always been my little bit of solace, my little kind of me on my own, working things out, just taking my own time with things and doing them the way I want, not under any boss, you know. But once you kind of get on the treadmill and then you get sponsors on board and then you have to get so many episodes out a month, it becomes a bit of a treadmill, and that enjoyment slightly goes out of it. You know, when you're keeping the plates in the air and you're trying to keep an eclectic mix of different cars to keep the audience interested, sometimes you're not spending as much time and putting as much effort into the car as you would like to.
Because they are the deadlines?
Yes, exactly, yeah. But I'm still enjoying it, I still love it, and it's growing, and I'm amazed and I'm really grateful for the way it's sort of taken me up a different direction, because so many actors can only do one thing. So many actors can just learn a few lines and wear makeup for a living. I'm thankful that I've got another outlet that I can put some of my artistic values into, you know, if you can call it that. I just feel like I'm doing a proper job, getting my hands dirty instead of wearing makeup for a living, really.
So, from being a doctor to peak practice,
Yeah.
to being a doctor for cars, after these things you said to me, what do you consider as the peak of your career?
The peak of my
career? Which one?
I think the two complement each other. And when I played the doctor, I mean, they should have called me Dr. Death, because I used to kill someone each episode, I think. But with cars,
oh, nice.
I'd like to think I save cars. I save these rare classics that are going to end up in the crusher or going to the scrapyard and being scrapped. So it's probably more, I probably get more pleasure out of doing that. But I think the two jobs complement each other, because I can get my hands dirty on one, and on the other one where I'm acting, I can get weighted on hands and foot and wear makeup for a living. So yeah, so best of both worlds.
You're an artist or a handyman?
Well, both, neither, both. Yeah, I suppose in both jobs I'm being something that it's almost like an alter ego that I'm not in normally as a human being in my everyday life. It allows me to play being somebody else and be a mechanic, which I'm certainly not, but I figure things out.
You like the procedure?
I like the
procedure of figuring things out, yeah. How to do that?
Yeah, I like the diversity of it, you know.
What's your future plans? Do you have any project now in your hands?
Yeah, well, I've just mentioned the Bentley I've just purchased. So that's arrived in the UK. And at the same time, alongside it, I'm going to do its sister car, basically, which is a Rolls-Royce Corniche convertible. And this is the Bentley Corniche convertible, or Mulliner Park Ward, I should say. And I'm going to restore them. The Bentleys are 1967. The Rolls-Royces are 1983. They look pretty identical, but they're so different in many ways. So I'm going to restore them side by side over the next 12 months, strip and repaint both cars. One in its original colour. The other one, the Corniche Rolls, which is red, its original colour was willow gold, which was a horrible colour, 1970s colour. So I've decided to paint that in a grey. I know it sounds a bit dreary, but it'll look really nice when it's finished. But there was a car that I really, really wanted. I always say it's the car that got away. Many years ago, before I started restoring cars, I knocked for a friend. I called on a friend and he said, come and have a look in the basement. And in his basement, he had a 1960s or 1950s Porsche 356B it was. And it was in race colours with numbers on the doors and a stripe down the middle. And I said, what's the story behind this? He said, two Italian guys basically raced it round the world and it blew up outside my house in the 1970s. And he said, they didn't have the money to get back to Italy. So he said, well, I'll pay for your fare. He said, I paid for the flights, and he said, keep the car. And it's been sitting there for like 30 years. And I said, I'll buy the car. I want to restore a car. I'd never done it before, but that's what really made me say, I want this car, you know. And I wanted to keep it.
With 4 horsepower.
Oh, it had no flaws in, but it was still in its original race colours, but with a blown up engine, and it had been there for over 30 years. And I offered him good money for it, and he said, oh, let me think about it, let me think about it. And every time I saw him, as the years went by, I went, how's the car? Yeah, it's still there, it's still there. I so wanted this car, and I bumped into him 2 years ago. I said, how's the car? He went, what car? I said, the Porsche, the 356. He said, oh, I've scrapped it. Like, what? He said, oh, I got sick of looking at it and I scrapped it. He'd forgotten I wanted to buy it off him. And it broke my heart because I really wanted that car. I used to dream about it when I was going to sleep, but it was the one that got away, you know. But if I'd restored that car, I would have kept it in its original race colours and the stripe and the numbers on the side. And I think the story that went with it was the most important thing. It's all about the story, and every car's got a story. But that story for me was unique.
Okay, I think that you will have the chance to have another great story in the future, and you will have the chance to find a car that you will love and you want to buy and restore. And before we finish, I want the biggest challenge of restoring classic cars.
The biggest challenge? Woof. Ooh, one of the biggest challenges is what I'm kind of doing in Los Angeles at the moment. There's a Hollywood editor named Dan Lebenthal. He's edited like Beverly Hills Cop, Bad Boys, Elf, Ant-Man, Spider-Man. He's one of the biggest editors in Hollywood. And he managed to purchase off his friend's mother when he was at university a Mercedes 190 SL, sports car in 1958. Now, he called me up and said, would you come and have a look at my car? And it hadn't moved for 24 years. The engine was seized, the brakes were all seized up, the suspension was shot, the paint was bad. It was in real disrepair, you know. So I've spent probably 10 visits over there and I've completely restored the car. I was over there, yesterday I just came back from California. Friday I came back from California. Yesterday I was all day coming here. Whatever, that's another story. But
you look fantastic, perfect shape.
Yeah, but grab me, my body's broken, I'm gone. Yeah, so this car I rebuilt the brakes, I repainted the car with an HB body paint, which was fantastic, which I've used for years now, and it's my go-to paint. And the car looks fantastic. I've redone the interior, I've rebuilt the engine, I've rebuilt the brakes, the suspension. But in the last week, I fitted electronic power steering to the car, which I know I've explained about. I think you should always keep a car stock. If it's a beautiful old classic car, keep it the way it was built, the way it left the factory. But I think in this case, because it was a 1958 car, it just transformed the car. For me, it's all about the drive, the comfort, the driving experience. And it was so stiff, the steering, because it was manual steering. To give it power steering, for me, it was a final icing on the cake, really. You know, I think I've done the right thing. Even though it's sacrilege to a lot of people, I think fitting power steering to that car, after all the other work I've done on it, was the final cherry on the cake.
Perfect. And how a guy that is obsessed with classic cars feels about electric cars?
I'm quite passionately against them, really, because, well, I think if you go back to, say, 1905 or whenever it was when they had electric cars before the petrol cars, before the gasoline cars, whatever. They hit a crossroads and they had a choice. They go with developing the petrol cars or they develop the electric cars. I think if back then they'd gone up the electric road, I think we'd probably be in flying saucers now. You know, we'd be way ahead of the game. But to suddenly take the tarpaulin off the electric car and say, now we're going to try developing this, 100 years, over 100 years after the event, 120 years after the event, I really feel like we don't have the infrastructure in place for the governments to be pushing the electric cars on us. It's not really viable.
Of course.
There's not enough charges. The factories are causing more pollution in the environment just to basically build the batteries. They're dangerous, they go on fire spontaneously. I don't think they're developed enough to be, we're not far on enough. We haven't got the infrastructure to take it forward to that level. So that's the way I feel about it.
So you are an authentic and original petrolhead. Nice to meet you, you are a friend of mine.
Yeah, basically, yeah.
Thank you, Gary, very much for being here. Thank you for sharing these stories with us. And thank you for watching Giving Life Color, the talk show. If you want more color in your life, then check on YouTube channel for Gary's Classic Obsession and follow us on social media and on our YouTube on the link below. Until then, bye-bye.